So let's talk about the Ford Focus, a sensible little hatchback, often seen buzzing around suburbia, typically driven by someone who thinks spirited driving is when they overtake a tractor on a country road. But then, in 2003, Ford Racing Performance Parts decided that all of that was a bit too tame. They took one look at the European Focus RS and thought to themselves, what if we rip out the 4-cylinder, cram in a V8 and send all of that power to the rear wheels? Well, this didn't stay an idea. They actually went and built the thing, giving us the Focus RS8, a Frankenstein's monster of raw power and sheer lunacy, unveiled at SEMA and stealing the show. So let me tell you all about it. Now, before Ford went completely mad, the Focus RS was already a bit of a rebel. Launched in 2002 for the European market, it was the ultimate hot hatch of its day, taking on the likes of the Volkswagen Golf R32. Powered by a 2-liter turbocharged inline-4, it produced a respectable 212 horsepower and 230 pound-feet of torque, which was plenty for a front-wheel drive car, especially one that weighed under 3,000 pounds. But this was no ordinary front-wheel drive system. Ford had teamed up with the motorsport wizards at Quaife to develop a proper mechanical limited-slip diff that helped keep the car from instantly understeering into the nearest hedge. The chassis was stiffened, the suspension was tuned for performance, and the 5-speed gearbox felt like it had been designed for rally stages rather than school runs. The RS wasn't just quick, it was a riot to drive. The torque steer was biblical, pulling the wheel out of your hands every time you put your foot down. But that was all part of its charm. It was raw, aggressive, and wonderfully unhinged. It was a hot hatch in the purest sense. But even with all of that, it was still a commuter car at heart. And that simply wasn't enough for Ford Racing. This is where the mad scientist at Ford Racing Performance Parts came in. They decided that the turbocharged 4-cylinder was a bit, weedy. Their solution, the 5-liter dual overhead cam V8, a naturally aspirated monster producing 420 horsepower and 370 pound-feet of torque. That's double the power of the original Focus RS, stuffed into a car the size of a shoe. But that was just the start. Front-wheel drive was ditched entirely, because who needs it when you have a fire-breathing V8 under the bonnet? In its place, Ford Racing engineers developed a bespoke rear-wheel drive setup, complete with a reinforced subframe and a Ford 8.8-inch differential. The front suspension was completely redesigned, taking inspiration from Google components, while the rear setup featured a custom-built system with adjustable ride height and multi-mac dampers. This wasn't just a Focus with a big engine, it was a complete mechanical overhaul. The rear seats were removed, the entire driveline had to be repositioned, the fuel tank relocated, and the chassis strengthened to handle the absurd amounts of power sent to the rear wheels. And then there were the wheels themselves. While the original Focus RS had 18-inch alloys, the RS8 went full-blown muscle car mode, with massive 225/40 18s at the front and laughably wide 255/45 18s at the back. This wasn't just a hot hatch anymore, it was a full-blown tire-shredding monster. Now, you might think that stuffing a 5-liter V8 into a Focus would make it a complete mess, and you're partially right. The car was no longer a nimble hot hatch, it was something else entirely. With rear-wheel drive and 420 horsepower, it had more in common with a Mustang than a traditional Focus. Inside, things were kept relatively restrained. The European RS seats remained, but Ford Racing added their own touches, including a Focus A-pillar gauge port and a full complement of gauges to monitor all the mayhem happening under the bonnet. But the real magic was under the skin. The Cam V8 was a proper high-performance engine based on the 4.6-liter dual overhead cam V8 from the 2003 SVT Cobra, but bored out to 5 liters with forged internals, ported heads, and high-lift cams. It revved to 6,700 RPM, making all the right noises, while absolutely obliterating any pretense that it was still a hot hatch. The exhaust system was another piece of automotive art. Ford Racing custom fabricated an entire system that included prototype metal substrate catalyst and dual-mode mufflers. This meant that at low revs, the RS8 could be just about tolerable in city driving, but the moment you opened it up, all hell broke loose, and the car would produce a V8 roar that seemed entirely unnatural coming from a Focus. But you might ask, why spend all of this money on a Focus? Well, the RS8 was built as a showcase for Ford Racing's new Camera Crate engine, and it stole the spotlight at SEMA in 2003. It wasn't just a one-off show car. Ford Racing even planned to sell a rear-wheel drive conversion kit for Focus enthusiasts who fancied turning their front-wheel drive torque steering hatches into rear-wheel drive monsters. But sadly, the RS8 never made it to production, and the rear-wheel drive Focus never became a thing. It was a concept that should have been built, but Ford, in their infinite wisdom, decided that what people really wanted was more bland SUVs instead. Would it have worked as a production car? Probably not. It would have been terrifying to drive in the rain, and insurance companies would have needed therapy just hearing about it. But as a concept, it was brilliant, an unhinged, completely unnecessary and utterly fantastic celebration of horsepower. That being said, I still don't understand why they didn't put the rear-wheel drive conversion into production. Maybe it was stupidly expensive and just not worth it. I don't know, but I do think it would have been quite cool. But now, 20 years later, the RS8 remains one of the most insane cars Ford has ever built. It was proof that when given the chance, Ford's engineers could create something that made no sense whatsoever, but in the best possible way. But at the end of this video, please let me know what you guys thought of the video and what do you guys think of this car. What do you guys think of the idea of a V8 powered hot hatch? I do think it's a bit silly, but I love the idea. I've said it once and I'll say it a million more times. In my opinion, small cars with stupidly powerful engines are the best things on the road. I love them and I'm currently building one. So it's obvious that I like it because I'm wasting money on a thing that's got way too much power for its weight and it's too small and dangerous to actually use. So for me, it's cool. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys enjoyed this video, please have a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you guys did like it, you'll most probably enjoy most of my other stuff. So just go through my channel, see if there's something else to like. I'll check you guys in the next one. Cheers, eh?